Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
So, Jerry, we go to a lot of conferences every year, and of course, our podcast is sponsored by CLASSLINK, and CLASSLINK is putting on its very own in-person conference in Dallas this March. And I was at a conference in New Jersey, a school boards conference, and I saw the list. It said Gregory Offner. I was like, and I looked him up and I thought, my gosh, who is this cat? This seems really different. And I was so intrigued. I went to it. Everyone was out of their seats, singing, clapping. And I said, that's it. That is who we are going to have for our keynote at our ClassLink conference. And we have him here today. And I'm so excited for you to meet him because he's right up your alley.
It is. But I have to tell you, Jamie, before the show, Gregory and I did not know if the show could go on
Because
he's an Eagles fan and I'm a Chiefs fan.
That's right, from Philadelphia. Yeah.
Yes, we got through. And we're just going to keep in touch. And one of us will be pretty happy on February.
Well, yeah. I guess I'll have to mediate between the two of you today. So
you
I'm
will.
Happy to.
You will.
Happy to do
but
that.
But Gregory, why is Jamie saying you are so different?
Well, first I'll just say that Jerry and I found middle ground in the form of Taylor Swift.
We did.
Eagles, the thing we can agree on. She's from the Philly area. She's dating Travis Kelce. So there's our middle ground.
True.
Jamie, and thank you very much for having me on the show, Jamie and Jerry. The program that Jamie saw and the program I'm going to deliver for the folks in Dallas is really a keynote experience. And I say that because my background is as a dueling piano bar performer. I did that for the better part of 15 years. And when I decided to start studying experience, how we create experiences that people want to have more of, why people like certain experiences and shy away from others, I realized that if I was going to bring this research and data and information to people, I had two options. One is I could present it like many speakers and speeches go. Couple of slides, a bunch of words, maybe some stories. Thank you very much. Tip your waiters, right? Or I could create engagement, build the type of experience from the ground up for the attendees right on stage in front of their eyes, not just tell, but demonstrate how these ideas work, why these principles are so effective, and what the audience members can take back to their organizations and even into their personal lives to build and be part of more experiences that people want to have, that they want to have again and again. And so I bring a piano to every gig, to every speech. I solicit requests from the audience members, and we build this experience together over the course of an hour. And Jamie, that's what you saw in New Jersey. And listeners, that's what, if you're coming to Dallas, and I hope that you are, that's what you're going to experience in February in Dallas.
Oh my gosh. I have so many questions right now because first of all, you had me at piano bar.
Yes.
I love piano bars.
That's
one of my favorite things because
I get dragged every conference to a piano bar. Yes.
Yes.
I love them too, but they often end up being late nights. That's the
that's part of it, right? But I also think that they're very unifying.
Yes.
They bring people together and people have a good time together. And, in the world we live in right now, we need more of that, right? The other thing that you sold me on is that experiential experience. Like Jamie and I both love project-based learning because it's not hypothetical. It's really doing it. And so you're doing that kind of thing in a keynote, which I think is brilliant. I love that.
Thank you for saying that. And those are two really important points that I feel strongly about in terms of one, building community. Yeah, we need more of it in the world. And the whole purpose of coming together in a business is to build something better, to perform a service, a task better than we'd be capable of doing on our own. And I think that's also what draws folks to the piano bar. You could sit at home and play some karaoke tracks on YouTube and sing to your heart's content, pour yourself, your favorite drink. I could sit here in my house and just play the piano all night long to my heart's content. But really, that experience pales in comparison to what we can build when we all come together and work together to create that experience. And the same is true in work, the same is true in our personal lives.
Yeah.
And so by replicating that in a session, it not only, to our previous point, demonstrates what audiences should take away, but it gives people that feeling they've been yearning for, that we didn't just put our clothes on and fly to some city to go to a conference and sit in a chair to listen to stats and stories that we could have done over Zoom. We're doing something here that we literally could not accomplish as well if we weren't all together in unison.
It's true. It's so
I
true.
just love,
I do
and people
too.
walk away feeling good,
Very.
just happy. It just brings them up. But I do have a burning question for you. You said
Okay.
people request.
Yes.
What's the number one requested song?
Oh, I can't tell you that. You're going to have to come into the keynote and find out. No, I'll tell you. It's interesting because sometimes I'm speaking to groups of several thousand people and we've only got an hour. And as much as I would love to make it a 60-minute concert, there's a lot of important information we have to get to. So an audience member came up to me probably 6 months ago, and after the program said, "Hey, I've got an idea for you. You talk about how important it is for us to be able to collaborate and contribute to what we're doing." That's one of the principal ideas of this program, is that if you want to build a culture of engagement, if you want to offer or be a part of the type of experiences people want to have again and again, you have to both collaborate, meaning working together, and contribute. Add something of yourself. And so those are two components of an experience in my keynote, at a piano bar, hopefully at the organizations, the listeners work at. Those are two important elements of a great experience. And so we built this idea of taking audiences' requests into the program so that everyone could participate, collaborate, and contribute. But this person after the event said, "Well, what about all the requests you don't get to?"
Oh,
I said, "Well, inevitably there's going to be some requests I don't get to, but it sounds like you have a thought past this. What are you thinking?" He said, "Well, you talk about how valuable important it is for people to contribute, what it does to us psychologically and emotionally. It'd be interesting to hear you talk a little bit about what happens when we try to make contributions, but they're not acknowledged or they're rebuffed." And that is an important conversation to have, especially with leaders. Because if we get people to take the risk and put themselves out there and say, "Hey, I got an idea," at minimum, we need to let them know the idea was received, appreciated, and what we're going to do with it. Whether it's, "Hey, our plate is full right now and we can't address this, but I promise we're going to circle back," or, "Hey, we took a look at this and it just doesn't fit with our priorities." Whatever the answer is, just that there's an answer. Nothing feels worse than throwing an idea out into the ether.
Right.
So my number one requested song, without a doubt, is Piano Man.
Yes.
I mean, I just think it would be impossible to go to a piano bar and not expect to hear that song. But what I love are the unexpected little treats that I get when people submit a request for a song that I haven't thought of in years, or that I wouldn't have played but for their request. I mean, I have an idea of where the program needs to go from start to finish, but the magic is some of those little delightful surprises, I like to think of them as, they can really change the experience. And that's what we're hoping for, whether it's at a piano bar, at work, in our life. We want more of those delightful surprises. When we find those in a conference, in the workplace, in our personal life, the person in front of you at the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through line pays for your coffee. What a delightful surprise.
Right.
Someone holds the door for you. I mean, for somebody who's been having a terrible week, maybe that's the only act of kindness they're getting. And that costs us nothing to hold the door open, but it could mean everything for the other person. And so that, I think, is the magic of what we get to build both in the keynote and at a piano bar, is that for me, it's just performing a request, whether it's at the piano bar or in the keynote. But I've been blown away by the amount of times I got somebody's request in the keynote and they came up and were effusive. They were almost welling up with emotion saying, I can't believe I got to be a part of this experience. Thank you. Um, and for them, it's something very special. For me, it's just playing a song.
Yeah.
It's really kind of special what a small act can do for somebody else, something that doesn't seem meaningful to us, but it means everything to them.
Yeah. And the experience part of this is so very important. And really for this conference coming up is super important because the first time we're doing this in person, we've always done virtually. So that's why I really was drawn to you, was just this magical experience that you provide. You also have a very important message. And the message is something that you have gathered from your past experience of having played in piano bars. And you bring this message. I think historically you've brought it to corporations and companies. And then I think the story was I asked you how you got into delivering this message to education. I think you presented at a school boards conference, and then lots of school board members said, "Oh, you should come to our district." Is that how that started?
That's right. I got invited to speak at a school board event, and I knew that I could make it resonate. My mom had been a teacher for 40 years and she retired, maybe a decade ago. So I got to witness her journey. As I grew, I sort of got to understand what she was going through.
Mhm.
Late nights. I mean, I remember as a kid walking into her bedroom and she's asleep with lesson plans, back when we had to bring papers everywhere, lesson plans or grading things, just sort of strewn about. I mean, she was constantly working and putting every ounce of her into the kids, into those classrooms. And so there's a lot that can be said that's valuable when it comes to my program for the industry of education.
Yeah.
But I wasn't prepared for just how many principals and superintendents, were going to approach me afterwards and say, "Hey, can you come to a PD day? We've got all these educators. We'd love you to come in and speak to them." So it's really heartening to know that this message is being welcomed into the education community because it is one of the most transformational experiences a human being has.
Yeah.
That experience with learning, that experience with their teachers. I mean, outside of their parents, teachers are often the main authority and sort of role model figures in a child's life. And so being able to make school, whatever level you're at, whether it's elementary, post-secondary, even graduate, right? To make that experience something that the child wants to lean into and engage with.
Yeah.
That they go home and think, "I can't wait to go back tomorrow." That's what I hope to be able to help educational organizations do. And some of the tips and strategies I'm going to leave your audience members with, if they bring them back into their organizations and start to implement them, that's exactly the type of experience they'll be able to create. Just as important for the educators themselves to feel that way, not just the students, but that the teachers go home, that the faculty, the staff go home and they say, "Yeah, I want to go back again."
Right.
Right.
Especially in this climate that we have in education. It's so challenging. And so your message resonates with education leaders as they lead their staff. It resonates with educators as they lead their classrooms. So the message is, and I have your book because you not only do this on stage, but you have a book as well. It's called The Tip Jar Culture. So can you explain your message a little bit about that?
The tip jar culture was built on this idea, or really it's a realization that I came to, which is I spent the better part of a 15-year career working at piano bars, trying to fill up my tip jar, just trying to fill it up with money. I've played all over the world. I've filled lots of tip jars up in lots of states and countries. I tell you, I can't remember what I made on any particular night. I really don't remember, "Oh God, remember that place we made $1,000 or, what have you."
Right.
It's the interactions with the people that I remember the most. It's a couple in Toronto, Ontario, a piano bar that I played at for several months, who had their first date there and then asked me to be a part of the proposal. We did sort of a
Oh,
little shtick with coming down for a request and singing a special song, and it turned into a proposal. It's a very special story that I'll share with your audience members about some of the work I've done with children in children's hospitals, volunteering, which started through COVID. It really wasn't about filling the tip jar up with money. It was about the metaphorical tip jar. inside of me. That's what kept me coming back. And it's not to say money isn't important. It is. We need it. Have you seen the price of eggs lately? We need money. But more than that, what keeps us coming back for more isn't the paycheck. It's the sense of purpose, the sense of progress, and the participation with the community, with our colleagues that we get to have when we work in an organization or in an establishment that espouses this tip jar culture.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. I mean, we're motivated by much more than the money. And, there's that quote, it's not always what you do, it's how you make people feel. And I think that building that culture is so important. And I think that message is really great.
I want to take it a step further, though, just to sort of bring it to life for your listeners.
Yeah.
I have a 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Okay. When I got this car in 2018, Jamie, Jerry, this was like a holy grail car for me that I had always wanted. My cousin growing up had a Jeep Cherokee. And I was like, my cousin was the coolest human being to ever walk the earth. So whatever he had, I wanted to be like. And in 2018, I got my grail car. Man, I'm telling you, I vacuumed this thing like obsessively. I kept it so clean. It is 2025, and that piece of crap is sitting out front of my house right now. Now, what's the difference? What's the shift? I have gotten used to having this grail car, and it's not this, oh my gosh, crazy thing that I'd love to have. I've had it for darn near 10 years, taking me through hundreds of dollars of repairs. It's basically on its last leg. And here's why I share that, and here's the relevance. When we're chasing money and we get that promotion, we get that raise, it feels great. It feels like that holy grail thing we've been after. But eventually, we habituate. So we're going to talk psychological principles here. The principle of habituation, we get used to that number. And now it doesn't become a raise, it just becomes my paycheck. Right. The paycheck that better hit on Friday or I'm going to be upset. And in a couple of years or months, it turns out just like this Jeep Grand Cherokee, crappy paycheck that I get. It's not our fault that money isn't making us happy. It's psychology. It's that we get used to those raises and almost like a dopamine kick, we need more and more. But purpose, connection does something different that we don't habituate to. And when we're driven by purpose in the work that we do and in the relationships that we nurture, rather than profit or the what's in it for me, that is so much more meaningful. And the value, the intrinsic value, the psychological value of that lasts so much longer. And so I'm very passionate about blending psychology with the performance aspect of this program. In fact, that's why I use the piano in the program itself. Yes, it's fun. Yes, it builds community. But there are areas of our brain that are activated by music. Two in particular, the amygdala and the hippocampus. And I could just sense your listeners who are into psychology geeking out on this right now. But here's the deal. Music activates those two parts of our brain, and those happen to be associated with creativity and memory. And so when you're coming to a conference, you want to get new ideas. And I think for anyone who's put the conference on and done all the hard work in planning and getting the speakers and the venue and everything that goes into putting an event on, they want you to get some value long-term, to remember the stuff that you're hearing in these sessions. And so by leveraging music during the program, it helps the attendees let their guards down, because now it's not a business conference. It's fun, kind of like Schoolhouse Rock or Sesame Street. It doesn't feel like we're doing serious work, but I promise you under the surface we are. And that it anchors those ideas deep in your brain. And maybe you hear Piano Man a couple months later and you remember that idea, or you associate it with another memory you had. So we're creating these very strong bonds with your memory and allowing your brain to be more prepared for creativity. And so I think that's so important, that it's not just fun for fun's sake that we're having. This is a carefully designed experience that your attendees are going to get a lot out of. And so is the book, if you used to go ahead and read that.
Yeah. And so to be in a keynote that is novel, that your brain is just drawn to that immediately. And I love the fact that you're using psychology behind it all, but people don't even notice the psychology. which is a good thing and a bad thing, because you want them to know that there's a lot of thought that goes behind this, having fun and learning at the same time. And I think in education, we have poo-pooed that idea for so many years that this isn't about fun, it's about learning. And I love that you're bringing back that the fun is what makes the learning come alive.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have a background in psychology, so that's why all of this made sense to you. Tell us a little bit more about your background and how you moved from being the dueling pianist to bringing this to the stage on as keynotes.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that connection here, because it's fascinating. Despite all of the work and development and studies that I'd done in psychology, I kind of never saw this coming.
Mhm.
It took somebody else to show me what I was missing. So I suffered a pretty severe vocal cord injury, which forced me to end my professional singing and playing career. I'm okay now, but I went through a lot of surgery and a lot of work, internal and actually physical work, to rebuild and regain the ability to speak. And I'm going to share more about that in the keynote, but something I don't get to speak about in the keynote that's very important to me is how someone helped me see this transition opportunity. Because let's see, the injury happened in 2015. So by about 2017, 2018, my ability to continue to sort of fake it, meaning fake my ability to use my voice the way I had in the past. Because in addition to my job at the piano bar, since I wasn't making that Taylor Swift money, I had a day job. I was doing sales and not very passionate about it, but I was good enough at it. But when you have vocal issues, now all of a sudden I can't speak as much. I can't network as much. So both of my worlds were sort of falling apart. And I didn't know what was on the other side of that. My voice had always been how I connected with the world, earned a paycheck, and it was gone. So I decided to attend an event, a sort of motivational raw event. And during the first day of that event, I went to the concession stand to get some soup. Not because I'm particularly passionate about soup, but because it was absolutely freezing in this venue. The person who was the motivational, inspirational speaker is famous for keeping his venues like frigid. So people wear their snow parkas and things. It could even be in the middle of July and they're just cranking the air conditioners. So I needed something to heat me up. And in front of me is a very imposing woman. I mean, taller than me, and I'm 6 foot. She had this big black full length parka on, and she turned around and she said, "How many events have you been to?" Meaning, how many of these events? And I didn't really want to speak because it was already loud in there and I didn't want to damage my voice. So I said, "This is my first one. What about you?" She said, "This is my 14th. I mean, I was gobsmacked. I said, "You've come to 14 of these? I got to hear the story." So she told me her life story over the next 15, 20 minutes as we sat down and sort of shared a meal together. And then we started to walk around the venue because we were on a break and had another 15 or so minutes before the program was going to resume. And as we're walking, she said, "Tell me your story. Why are you here?" And after her banger of a story, I mean, her life journey was incredible. I said, nobody cares. This is just neat. Let's just relax. And she said, no, I want to know. And I've always believed in the value of advice from strangers. They're not emotionally invested in me. I'm not emotionally invested in them, especially if it's at an airport or something. Like, I'll probably never see them again. So why not be totally honest? And I felt the same way about this woman. Her name was Svetlana, by the way. So I felt this way about Svetlana. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to unload all of my emotional baggage and see what she thinks. And so I, over the course of the next 5 or 10 minutes, explained where I was, how I got there in life, and how nervous I was about where I was going to be. And I shared all the things I'm passionate about and interested in, and how I wished I could find a way to pursue them all together. And she stopped and she looked at me, and I could see this twinkle in her eye, and she smiled and she said, "You don't see it, do you, Greg?" I said, "See what, Svetlana?" She goes, "You don't see that you're trying to keep all of these passions and talents you have in these separate buckets. You're compartmentalizing your life. You've got this piano bar version of yourself. You've got this day job version of yourself. You've got the family and friends version of yourself. I get a little emotional. I'm getting chills as I share this story. And she said, what would it look like if you put all that together in one package? And I said, I don't know, but judging by the smile on your face, I feel like you have an idea. And she put her arm around me, and we were standing right in front of one of those like alleyways in the arena where you can get back into the seating area. And through the little alleyway tunnel, we could see the main stage. She pointed at the stage and she said, I think that's where you belong. I think that's where you could do your best.
Oh,
And I had never felt I couldn't even describe, if you gave me another 20 minutes to search for the word, the emotion that I felt in that moment, but it was I was so inspired. I went back to my hotel room that night. It was a 3-day event, and I just started furiously journaling. What would I even be interested in talking about? What would it look like? And over the next several months, I interviewed at least 50 people who do what I do, speakers, coaches, consultants, saying, what's the hardest part? What's the best part? What does the job and work-life balance look like? And through that exploration, I began to feel more and more confident that this was where I could bring all those talents and those passions. And so I made the decision to leave my W-2 job and make this my full-time career. And it has been by far one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, probably second to having kids and marrying my wife.
wow. I never heard that story. That's incredible. That's really incredible.
Yeah.
And have you ever seen her again?
So we're still connected on Facebook. She is, after my wife, she is the first person I thank in the book and in the acknowledgments, because if it weren't for her just turning around to talk to a stranger, we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That is so amazing. I love it. I love it.
I always believe in that serendipity too, that if you're open, it comes to you. The message comes to you. I just love this story.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
That's
And that's what we try to do with the keynote, back to the psychology and music, letting down people's guards. I really want to humanize a room when I go and speak with an audience. I don't care if you're the CEO. I don't care if it's your first day on the job. You have a heartbeat. You have a life. You have a story. I want to speak to the person that's sitting in that chair, not the title, not the professional, because I believe that when the person gets better, everything else spiderwebs. If you are becoming more interested in having the type of experiences every day that are worth having again, you'll bring that passion into your work. You'll bring that passion into the way you interact with your family, with your community. I mean, at its heart, yes, I talk about ideas that are applicable and appropriate for the workforce, but I'm sort of on this very selfish mission to get everybody to feel a little bit better about what they're doing each day. And I think the ripple effect of that can really change things for people, regardless of what you do for a living. And so by using music, it both humanizes people and it gets them to sort of let their guard down. They're not really sure what's happening. They're just open to going with the experience. They sort of trust that I know what I'm doing. And they're like, all right, man, if you say this is going to be cool for the next 60 minutes, we're in. And then they start to have fun. They start to learn through that fun. And at the end of the 60 minutes, my goal and what audiences experience is they walk away with both a song, an idea, and some excitement in their head and their heart.
Love it. Love it. And that's why we asked you to join, because that's exactly the type of experience we want the folks who come to Dallas to get. So we're really happy about that.
So, Jamie, you're just giving me FOMO because I'm not going to be in Dallas.
I know. You're going to be at another conference. Yeah, we're all spread out that week, but
maybe we can FaceTime you in. Maybe that's what we can do from stage.
Yeah.
I know it. Oh my gosh. I want to hear this so badly. This is just, it strikes every belief I have about learning. Yeah. You have hit on it. So
indeed. So I'm even more excited now because I haven't read this yet. So I'm really even more excited to read it. We're gonna have these at the conference too, I think. So that's gonna be exciting too.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, this has been a wonderful podcast. And I have to say that you haven't given me a song, but that's okay. But you gave me an idea and some excitement.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is, and I'll wrap up. We can wrap up with this, but I love the fact 'cause the first thing I asked is, I'm all about logistics. I'm like, how do we do this? Because you had the big piano up there. Like, how do we get the piano there? Do we have to have a venue that has a piano? But you have the piano shipped, isn't that right? It's like a mock little baby grand. Is that it?
So for the audience members listening, just sort of cover your ears and go la 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 for the next couple minutes, because I'm going to tell you a bit about how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Oh, cool.
When you go to piano bars, with
Yes.
few exception, you're not actually seeing a real piano for a couple of reasons. One, the sound control on a real piano, especially at a bar environment, is very challenging. Two, when they're played regularly, they need to be tuned regularly. And so there's a
Right.
pretty decent expense that goes into that. And then three, they're expensive and they're heavy. So
Yes.
most piano bars and my keynote use a little bit of stagecraft, a little bit of stage magic, and we use something called a piano shell. And it's basically a piece of furniture that's built to look just like a baby grand piano, but it's hollow. There's absolutely nothing inside. And oftentimes the legs come off pretty easily, and it can be moved virtually anywhere by about 2 average-sized people, right? So we
Yeah.
don't need like huge linebackers to do this. And then inside of that shell, where the piano keys would normally go, goes an electric stage piano. And so that hooks up to an AV system, a PA system, and that's how we create the piano magic on stage. So it enables me to bring this program to huge conferences and ballrooms in Vegas, and also schools and office buildings. If you're on the second floor or higher, as long as you have an elevator, we can make it work.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
I've noticed a lot of technology, like the iPads at piano bars now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's my favorite thing to do in Vegas is go to a piano bar. So where
I
did
was
you
just at a
in
bar in
Vegas?
Chicago Saturday. I delivered a keynote there in the morning, and I saw a fantastic piano bar performer who not only was just, I don't even know how she was pulling up the requests as fast as she was when they came in, but she went almost 4 hours without a break.
Oh.
And I mean, that type of stamina is incredible. And the iPad changed the game for us. We used to need these huge binders of music. So
Right.
if you asked me to play a song I had never heard of before, maybe I had the binder, maybe not, but it probably wasn't going to sound great no matter what, because I wasn't sure how it was supposed to sound. Now, one of the things that you'll see piano bar performers do is they'll have the Apple AirPods, and I can
Yeah.
just pull up a song on YouTube. I can pull up the chords on my iPad, and I can literally play along as I listen to it so I know the beat and play a song I've never heard before on the spot and have it be pretty darn close.
That's so cool.
Technology has really enabled some cool stuff in the world.
Right. I have noticed that because I was at piano bars back in the binder days.
Back in the binder, did you? That's terrific.
Yes.
So,
Well, funny enough, when you're going to be in New Orleans, Jerry, Pat O'Brien's, the piano bar that most people know of there, happens to be the oldest piano bar in the country. And they are one of the few who use actual pianos.
they do? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting because I knew that about your stage, but I didn't, when you travel, but I didn't know that about actual piano bars. And it's funny because right after this conference, we are going to, I'm going to meet you there, Jerry, New Orleans for another conference. So we will absolutely.
We'll go to Pat O'Brien.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
We will. Well, this has been so wonderful. So GregoryOffner.com, is that your website?
Yes, GregoryOffner.com.
All right. We will have that in the show
Gregory
notes.
Offner Jr. on all the major socials.
And then we'll have a link to
he
this.
could-
We'll put all that there. Awesome. Excellent.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much. You brightened my week.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I'm truly grateful that you invited me on the show.
Oh, we're so happy you were here.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.